we go. And have a couple of Preschool Promise updates or reminders to share with you all. And then we'll dive into a hopefully quick but meaningful discussion on the coordinated enrollment plan deliverable that's in your grants, and talking about some reworking of that deliverable. And then anytime we have left over for peer-to-peer dialogue, we'll try to do that as well. So Crystal, can I turn it over to you to just quickly run through our Preschool Promise updates?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So you should have gotten the email, I want to say, was it last week? I feel like days are a blur, or on the 1st, basically letting you know that the Preschool Promise Enrollment Manual, we had to unfortunately change the date for it to be released April 20th. So please look forward to that next week. The regional selection process template, again, just a reminder that it's due on May 6th. And that was sent out with the Preschool Promise selection process. And then also just kind of a reminder to continue supporting any under-enrolled Preschool Promise grantees. This means just, who might have low enrollment in a mixed delivery. We often find that in-homes are often the last to fill. So please work with them and inform them about the process of enrolling. Sometimes there have been some miscommunications or some misunderstanding, I guess, from the part of the in-home care providers, that they might know that they referred a child, but not really understanding that the family ultimately maybe chose a different site or location. So I think that's just kind of part of those conversations that happen. And then just kind of, remembering to, and I know that all of you have been working very diligently this year in trying to get full enrollment across all Preschool Promise providers. But again, maybe specifically asking Preschool Promise grantees or what they could be doing along with you to support targeted outreach. And that's all I have on my end.
Awesome. Any questions or anything before we dive in? Okay. So I am actually going to pull up just a little presentation, which is unusual here, but want to talk with you all about the coordinated enrollment plan deliverable. I'll just okay. Can everybody see like a PowerPoint slide? Thank you, Tammy. I saw your thumbs up. I appreciate that. I'm gonna jump around here a little bit on the side here. But as you all remember, we have our coordinated enrollment key activities in the implementation plan for coordinated enrollment. So along our kind of timeline, we would typically be working through our coordinated enrollment plan and implementation at this time of year. Again, because we've had some delays with Preschool Promise expansion and getting guidance out to you all, we had extended the deadline for the coordinated enrollment plan to June 1st to give us some more time. Now that we are in April and are continued to be delayed in Preschool Promise, we want to give a little bit more kind of time to talk about what we'd like to see, or goals we'd like to see around the coordinated enrollment plan deliverable. But in terms of creating a template and talking about submitting it, want to open that up a bit more to be more reflective of the time we're in. Hi, Jen. Thanks for letting us know you're on the phone. I'll try to make sure I'm reading out anything that's on the screen for you. as we go. So again, like this is our little graphic about coordinated enrollment. Typically what we'd say for early learning hubs is you convene your regional stewardship committee or your planning committee, whatever you might call that, group to create a community coordinated enrollment plan in the areas of marketing, outreach and recruitment, eligibility determination and programming, and selection and placement. And of course, through all that, really using a continuous quality improvement framework through looking at data, reflecting on process and evaluating how that goes. To spell that out a little bit more, you know, when this is fully implemented, you all in early learning hubs would convene the regional stewardship committee to document the step-by-steps that you and your community partners have determined you'll use to recruit families, determine them eligible for different program slots, collect applications with their preferences, match families according to their to vacancies and to their preferences, and then coordinate a waiting list. Basically ensure that should mid-year vacancies come up, you all have a process that you'd be following to keep those filled. We've added down here, you might choose to coordinate at a regional level, your whole hub region. You might choose a county by county approach, or even a more small community level to best serve the families in the communities and reflect, you know, what's available in their areas or particular community partners in a service area that may be different from your whole hub region. So that area would be available to you to make that decision. To support this, ELD is responsible for creating the template and minimum activity expectations. That's our phased implementation I'll get to on the next slide. Providing individual and collaborative TA to complete the plans. Revising and sharing program enrollment requirements. So the work Crystal's leading around the Preschool Promise Enrollment Manual, for example, and then elevating exemplars and sharing resources around that. And you'll notice sort of similar with our selection process, we're not responsible for approving a specific plan or activity, right? So I like to use the example, we might hold you accountable to having an outreach plan with your partners, but we wouldn't be approving like a flyer or a billboard, right? Or even the specifics of what your partners decide on outreach, as long as you've engaged them in the planning process. So when I talk about phased implementation, you know, when we're looking towards this coming program year, what we've put as sort of our minimum activity requirements or activity levels is really focused on scaling those community recruitment and referral efforts. So how are you going to coordinate together around recruitment, around directing families where they'd like to go? We can put a check mark next to that next bullet point, complete a coordinated slot allocation request. That I think has changed in terminology a little bit, but the Preschool Promise slot allocation assessment was that convening of partners to determine what characteristics and qualities providers needed to have to meet priority population family need. And then the third is really sort of a planning goal. So if we have eyes towards things like creating a common or unified interest form or application, starting to put those steps in place, knowing that for this year, we're still required to use the Preschool Promise application for Preschool Promise families, but starting to talk more about what interests or common interest forms or things are needed in community there. Super quick rundown of our ideal around the coordinated enrollment plan. I do want to talk a bit more about what we're looking at for this go round, given where we are in our whole process of enrollment work. So given that we're really focusing on those recruitment and referral efforts, our goals are to have an opportunity to compile the information on what's taking place across the state as it pertains to coordinated enrollment. So our real focus is what can we learn and share about what's happening statewide, really focusing on that community-wide recruitment and referral efforts piece. We also want to be able to share examples of the planning, the materials, put agendas on there. I know that's been something that's been nice to see from folks. Really able to do what we do in this cohort meeting is to promote great ideas or thinking across the regions and promising practices that we're seeing emerging there. So again, given that we have some unknowns about preschool promise expansion, we felt like asking you all to plan for something when there's unknowns, or to spend time creating a plan when you don't have all the information might not serve the goals of coordinated enrollment in your community. But we do know that you are working together, that you are talking about how this next year will look around outreach, recruitment, also potentially beyond those minimum activities too. So our goal here really is to hear from you all how we can best compile that information with the kind of least disruption to the work that you're doing in community and like your ability to be working together. So I'm not necessarily that interested in having you all fill out a very formalized plan that looks the same in every region. I'm really interested in sort of getting at how can we capture that information about what you're doing to be able to share that, across both to be able to speak about coordinated enrollment from a state level and regional level, but really to share the examples of what's working and what you're trying as we go. I'm going to pause there. Our next is going to be into sort of like, here's the things we're interested in gathering, and then talk a little bit more about those discussion questions that were on the agenda. But any questions so far about the coordinated enrollment plan, or how we're thinking about updating or changing that requirement? I'm either super clear or super unclear. That's what I've learned silence can mean.
I think it's super clear. I feel like I have an idea of what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I have an idea. It would be also great to see kind of what the template would look like. Sometimes when we're talking about things and then we go to the template or we go to the reporting of what this plan would look like, it's a lot different. And so if we could address those kinds of things that would be sitting on that, and then also what we're expected would be great with the plan as well for the deliverable.
Yeah, sure thing. I will move us there, because the next slide is sort of here's the questions or information we're interested in knowing. Again, with the marketing outreach kind of focus of this year in place. So first thing we'd want to know is, how are you planning? Are you planning at the whole region? Are you doing a county by county approach or a local community approach for marketing and outreach? And then make sure that we know which programs are participating. We know most everyone's Preschool Promise and Head Start OPK is fairly universal. And then we have a lot of hubs that are working with school district preschools as well. I know South Coast is one doing some of that stuff. I think Frontier has the benefit of those strong partnerships as well. And then some are also including local efforts or other work as well. So just knowing sort of when you're talking about outreach and marketing, which programs are you including in in that work as well. And then a very broad sort of please share, if you are working on a plan, or if you have, planned activities, or if there's materials you want to share about how you are coordinating marketing, outreach, and family recruitment, submit those. So I'm imagining that could look like a short description for those of you that have used or have a more concrete sort of outreach plan. I know in past years with the enrollment manual, we provided a sample outreach plan if that was useful to you, but not a requirement. Or if you have just, have agreed upon a timeline or some activities with your partners. Again, just a very, very brief overview to sort of share where you all are with your partners in outreach and recruitment. So those, as far as like a template goes, I think some of what we want to know and some of the discussion questions are just related to, is this, this type or this way of describing your work useful? Does it create challenges for you all? And then again, are there other bits of information that you'd like to know, and how we could receive that? Okay, I'm gonna flash to the discussion questions, but realizing we're probably gonna want to go right back to these. So I guess our first one is there other information, planning, or activities that we should compile about outreach and recruitment? Is there an additional question or way that we should talk about the questions of marketing and outreach and recruitment from this brief one? So I will jump back to those questions and then get my, and then we can move on to additional questions afterwards. So when you see these, do either other things come to mind that you'd want to share or that would be important to share about your work? Or additional spaces you'd like to talk about, or you'd like to write to a prompt?
I think it might be helpful, and it could be an additional question, but the second question, like which publicly funded ECE programs are represented, like what other partners, like other ECE partners are you working with? Like we're working really closely with our CCR and our Baby Promise. So, and we're working really closely actually with our parenting hub right now. So maybe just like what partners are we working with and what does that look like?
Great addition. How does that sit with other folks? A space to kind of highlight your partners that might not be directly program related, but are involved. Thumbs up from Tammy, see that. And I say that's a good idea. Thanks, Jen. Any additional information that'd be important to collect, or to have a space to share? All right, I'm going to head us back to the discussion questions. So again, the recruitment and outreach components are the minimum activities for coordinated enrollment. So we would expect each hub to meet those minimums. We know that that there are many of you that are going beyond those minimum requirements. And so wondering, is it useful to have optional questions or on the activities you're doing beyond the minimums. So that might look like going further into eligibility work, sharing paperwork, coordinating selection timelines and or selection tables. That's something I've heard a lot of, or placement work. And again, like, as we're thinking about something we don't want to take away from, we don't want to ask that you all submit something that's going to be taking you away from doing the work, given where we are in the year. But again, if that's something that you think would be useful or nice to highlight about where you're going beyond those minimum activities, I just open and wonder what you would like to see from that as well.
I'm trying to give it a pause, so I'm not always the first person talking, but I am also very opinionated, so that's hard for me. So I think optional questions are great. Yeah, I think that just the really general questions like what are you doing around eligibility for selection or placement is really helpful, because that just looks, I think it's so varied right now. I would also suggest like a coordinated enrollment specific question on our monthly coordinated enrollment report. I feel like that report is really preschool promise specific. And so just like a question about like, hey, what are you guys doing for coordinated enrollment this month? And I think that would be helpful, even just for me, for like remembering what we're doing month to month when it comes to these partnerships. Like, who'd you meet with and what did that look like?
So the way that my brain works, I need like the purpose, I need the whole picture so I can put the pieces together. So can we go to have a little discussion or talk just briefly about the purpose? Like what is the ELD trying to get out of this? Is this accountability for the coordinated enrollment dollars? Is it, kind of that's where I'm getting at. Is it more for us so that we're getting the information back? Is it a tracking system? Is it all of it?
Yeah, so I just moved us back to the goals of the coordinated enrollment plan, but like the ultimate purpose or hope is that we have engaged in like a community-led, family-centered process. So we've engaged in planning and we're running a process that then, actually, let me dive us back here. That we're essentially on this kind of like annual cycle. And what you're seeing is this year being like the cycle trying to get online and work forward. So if what we want is sector planning that informs sort of each step of this, how do we make sure that communities have what they need to create this plan to coordinate together, all the program or the participating programs information and create a process that looks, aligned, family-centered, smooth, and things like that. Again, in the ideal world, we'd have a plan and then you'd run the plan. I think what we're dealing with this year is a bit of like a convergence of those things where we know that things are happening, but we haven't necessarily had the timelining like of being able to plan and then do a process. We're in the doing. And so for this year, what we're interested in is how do we start to be able to talk about what's happening across the state when it comes to coordinated enrollment work. So it's where I see the accountability mechanism is more around like, you are convening your partners, like they are a welcome, part of the work that you're doing on coordinated enrollment. And then I think the continuous quality improvement side is how can we share the examples of what's going well and be able to sort of pollinate those promising practices across the state. So does that help? I know it's kind of we're in a tough spot of both planning and doing at the same time, and wanting to get some information about that while not being yet at the place of really having that full planning time before the implementation or the process time.
Yes, and when I was talking about accountability, or I'm thinking along the lines of a grant fund, because how much detail do we put in, or is it just adding more work? And if it's not going to go anywhere, it's just kind of an over, we need your plan, but it's not going to, to know that you're doing your job. It's like, how much detail do we put in to, Jessica's talking about adding more to our reporting. Is that going to help us long-term funding wise? Like, is it going somewhere? You know what I'm saying? How much detail do we need to put in to ensure that whoever's looking at it knows how much we're doing? Or is it just, you know where I'm going with that?
I hear you. Yeah. So is there like is there a level of information that like wouldn't be enough to like demonstrate that you're meeting your grant deliverables? Is that kind of your concern? If someone's reading this, what are they going to look for to like say like, yes, you're meeting the minimums or not? Is that?
No, I'm kind of going back to, sorry, I don't know how to, example would be reporting questions, example what to hit. Yeah, it's more along the lines of, I understand the plan. I think we need to have these put together and as detailed locally as we need. But when it comes to reporting to the state level and adding more questions, what are you getting at on adding more questions? Is it to help us, or is it like it goes to the state level of who funds coordinated enrollment? You know what I mean? Is this something that we need to start putting all the data together because it's going to go to the legislature to be funded for the next biennium kind of information? So that's where I'm at. Like when you start asking us questions on like what should we put more information on our report outs, or how detailed do we need to get? Like, is anybody tracking? I mean, I feel is the purpose of asking us how many more questions do we need to put on there for our benefit, or is there another benefit at the state level for funding?
I see what you're saying. And just to answer we are tracking. I read your reports. And I think where this part of the discussion question is going is more, at least like where the third question here is really where I put that on there is to say like, we have a variety of ways we could receive information from you. So if there is a way that we want to, like, I'm looking for the way that's going to create like the least burden possible, that gets us this information about what you're planning, that like gives us that like you said, like is a high level overview, and we know that there's going to be so much more detail because you're doing the work in community that might not be needed. So it's more, I guess my thought behind this third question is not so much like, oh yeah, we need to compile it this way because of there's some other need there. It's more just like, what's a way that we can receive this from you with like the least burden possible. So is that like a Word document there? And then I think I hear Jessica's like the monthly reports are very Preschool Promise oriented, right? Because we haven't changed them that substantially since like we started with just trying with Preschool Promise stuff. So an option, I guess I put that on there to say an option could be like, do you want to just space to like say what outreach activities you're doing? And we can compile that through the monthly report, or like through a one-time like Word document template or something else. But I think the intent being like, yes, we do want to have a little bit more uniform, like what's going on related to outreach and recruitment in each region, but not necessarily because it's like going towards like further resources or other grant like requirement type things. Okay, and I see just a simple check-in, maybe just a smart sheet Q&A. So a form that might ask you some of those questions or something like that as a possibility.
So in my head, I'm thinking that it's more going to be for our use. So like we have our outreach plan, and then the monthly report out is kind of like our timeline. Are we meeting our timeline? And then,
Okay, so they might go together like that. Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of how, so the simple coordinated enrollment plan template, but then actually reporting out monthly. And we already do that on our preschool promise form on the outreach activities. But
Yeah.
for me, I'm thinking, okay, I need to make sure those are aligning. And if, going back and checking when I'm doing my monthly reporting am I hitting my target, or am I doing what I said I was going to do in my plan kind of thing?
Okay, yeah. Or are there any like unknowns that you're gonna make a little change on or something like that?
Mhm.
Okay.
I don't know if that
I can see
resonates with
those.
anyone else.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. I was also seeing that there would be possibility of uploading documents or adding documents to it. So having materials, agendas, and things like that. So having a space to upload and keep those organized would be great as well.
Yeah, good flag there.
I like what Tammy said about, on our preschool promise reporting that we do monthly, there's a place to, already report what you're doing as far as outreach or, trying to fill slots. I'm not really sure we need another document to do that. Maybe we just need some direction on, aligning that with what our plan is going to be. And because it's different for each site that you have. And that's a way to kind of be individualized with each one of those sites about, activities that you're doing that maybe aren't region wide, but specific to an individual site.
Yeah. That makes sense. So we're in many ways like reporting already about outreach and recruitment through the monthly reporting. So maybe just a little like, how does this line up? And then it is going to be very site by site specific. So I think, am I hearing Patty right that you're saying like part of that the way that it's currently set up allows you to like highlight where individual sites might need extra stuff, but we know that.
Yes, exactly. And maybe we just flesh that out a little bit so that it connects with our plan.
Mm-hmm. I see.
The other thing that just this reminds me of is that everybody that's involved is reporting out. And so and I know that the providers have to give you, if they're not filling those empty slots, they're supposed to be giving you their plan monthly. Where is that going as far as coordinated enrollment? And some of the entities like Head Starts, we don't ever see those reports, and we're not privy sometimes to those plans. I know we're supposed to be working together and all of that, but we're still in the process of trying to figure that out. And so when we're putting our outreach together, and especially site by site specific on how we're trying to help fill slots, it would be nice to be able to somehow, I don't even know. I don't even know where I'm going with this. I kind of want to know what the Head Start's plans are. I mean, I do, that's specifically what I want to know. But the other thing is when I'm talking to Preschool Promise providers and they're reporting the exact same thing I am, how can we maybe support, especially the private providers who don't have any extra, staff to help them do the reporting, and it's just one more thing on their plate. Like, is there something already, and there's probably something already set in place. I know I've helped our providers before, and our Preschool Promise through CCR support has helped as well, but I didn't know how we're all reporting to the state level and what's happening up there to all that information, and how can we maybe align it better, or is that just up to us locally?
No, Crystal, I know you've had some conversations generally about like reporting alignment and stuff. Is there, for Preschool Promise, I should say, is there anything you'd respond to with that?
I don't know about the OPK portion of it in terms of alignment. I'm not really sure where we are with that at the moment.
So for Preschool Promise providers that are reporting under enrollment vacancies and things like that, can you speak to some of that?
I think at the moment it's kind of what's it called? That isn't my body of work to be looking at the moment, but I just want to say, where were we? It's been we're striving for some alignment, I guess, internally about what those what that reporting looks like for under enrollment. So I would just say like maybe more information to come soon of what that could look like.
Well, and just to add to that, so I feel like our private providers, when they have an opening, they panic. And they're like, oh my gosh, I mean, they literally panic, like we're going to lose our money, and we're working with them to get those slots filled. I feel like the Head Starts have had open slots and they're not panicking. It doesn't seem like they're panicking. So is it a different reporting system because they're Head Start? And you don't have to answer that. You may not have the answer to that, but this locally, this is our perception. This is what it feels like.
Yeah, that I appreciate that. I do think that there's not a separate reporting for Head Starts or OPKs that have Preschool Promise. They submit the same things when it comes to Preschool Promise enrollment. I do think that it's possible that part of this is just the experience of being a part of the program for a while, which is, it's going to be different when Preschool Promise and our mixed delivery system. And also I think the Head Start standards around really like maintaining that, waiting list and eligible families to fill vacancies may be giving them a bit more like like some stability and feeling about how to process with that. And I think, and I don't want to lose the point you made, Tammy, which is I think there's also a question about, okay, what about with OPK, or what might we know about supporting with that as well, which I can take back for sure. But if I were to like guess based on what you're seeing, I think it may be some of the Head Start standards and process they're sort of used to in some way. So may not be like outwardly panicking the way that a provider that's newer to public funding might be about being in a new program. But also we do still want to, do work to align what we're getting at the state level and being able to support with information so that you at the local level have what you need. We at the state level have the things we need, but ideally that there's a bit more of like similarity in the ways that we're using that information and sharing that information. Yeah, I see your chat. It does make sense to me. Like, just want to make sure you get the processes so that you can be useful, useful in your coordinated enrollment locally. Oh, and Patty, were you adding?
Yes, I just, I wish that we could plan when enrollments were more stable. I mean, I look at all programs and I mean, right now, there's a lot of people that are scratching their Head Start, Preschool Promise. Why are we under enrolled? It just, until we can kind of move through, COVID a little further and decide, I mean, I think there still are a lot of parents that aren't enrolling, for whatever reason. So we make a really good plan, but we can't always, control how we're going to fill those slots. And we're really rural here, and ours, our Preschool Promise slots, our one site is a Head Start site. The others are in school districts. So, I can make really good plans, but the school districts kind of do what they have always done, so hopefully they just include me in what they're doing. I mean, I kind of feel like I'm just kind of following along with it, but we do have good partnerships and getting stronger all the time. But yeah, Head Start is under enrolled. I don't know if other people are seeing that too, but it just seems like programs across the board, it's a little iffy on if they're going to be full or not, and the reasons why.
I think it's across the country. And another big part is when COVID first hit, my first year, I was a remote teacher, and I saw a massive shift in people deciding to spend more time with their families. And a lot of people cut back on hours or stopped working to homeschool. There was a big jump in homeschooling. And I know I brought that back because I had a lot of parents say they enjoyed doing the remote in some sense because they were able to see that growth like every day. And there was more of a push of putting kids into a site the year before kindergarten. Before that, they were asking for home visiting, not just for like EHS, but three and like early fours, not late fours, because I feel like COVID has really changed the mindset and what is fundamental to us spending more time with our kids. And, I don't know, but it's not just locally, it's nationwide. Because I talked to friends in California, other places that are in a similar thing, and they're saying it's everywhere.
Yeah, and I see Jessica in the chat as well. That Preschool Promise is full, waitlist long, and that the expansion and not quite knowing or starting a process for next year without all the new sites on board is a big challenge. It feels a bit crazy. Why am I trying to restate what you said, Jessica? You said it right. You said it the way that you're feeling it. Yeah. And just to echo on that, I think that's exactly where we're at with this deliverable itself, which is like, we want to be able to plan. We want to be in a solid world where we know what we're working with, and also like how families are feeling and likely to respond to new slots, the same slots. And that's not where we are for a number of reasons right now. So really wanting to, above all, take this coordinated enrollment plan deliverable sort of off the burner a bit, to say like, we know that we want to be planful. I don't know if that's a word, but we want to be able to plan, and we are in a bit of react or respond to the changing situation. So if we can get some simple information about how those reactions, those responses are taking place, that might be able to give us some information about how we move into that stable feeling altogether, as well. So I took the presentation, the discussion questions down to just be able to see you all a little bit better. But I think from what I'm hearing from your feedback, it sounds like something that's a simple, maybe smart sheet or and a place to upload some documents would be best. Additional, question around any partners that aren't directly related to programs but are big players for your coordinated enrollment would be good to outline there. And then maybe not so much a change to anything reporting as like some guidance around or reminders around kind of lining it up to what you all are working on with your partners and what you want to share monthly about what you're doing. Yes, Patty, and hopefully moving towards that stable feeling together. Are there any, before we go like super into our cohort time, are there any last things or areas you want to talk about that change or that template around the coordinated enrollment plan? Make sure I have, or that I should say Erin's taking copious notes on, I'm sure. Okay, if anything strikes you, feel free to shoot me an email about it, or if you want to set up a time to call, I'm happy to talk further. The two other cohorts are a week from Thursday, so we'll be doing a similar thing with them, and then reporting out what common themes or things we're going to be sort of changing the template to capture after that. So you've got a little time if you want to reflect further as well. In our last 10 minutes, I do wonder, just hearing what started to come up around next year, also around knowing what's going on and how to support Head Starts from a local partner standpoint. Were there any things that folks wanted to ask each other about their process, about where they are in this time of beginning? I'm not sure. Oh, good. Tammy, I see your hand.
I have two questions. One came from the community and the other is for me. The first one is around Baby Promise. Is that somebody from the community asked me if that's even on the radar? And if it is it going to be the same process as the Preschool Promise application? So that was one question. And then the second one is around parent leadership. The PSU is doing, that's coming up April 19th. I feel like I missed something, or did I not miss it and it went directly, is it like a pilot? I don't even know what it is. I got sent to me by our director and I had no information or feedback for her.
Those are two great questions. For Baby Promise, I'll have to take that back to our Baby Promise manager. I'm not sure about the process, but I do not believe that it would be the same RFA. If anything, I think it would really be focusing on the Preschool Promise RFA expansion. That I have not heard those two combining at the very least. But I can take back to our Baby Promise manager to see if there's any updates or things to share about Baby Promise with you all. We might be able to invite her to come to a cohort or find a time to get an update from her. And then I was just trying to send Cass, our parent leader person, a quick ping, but it looks like she may be occupied. I'm not aware of the PSU thing, but I do not think you've missed anything in coordinated enrollment that would have done parent leadership, but I'm happy to help investigate that too, and get you some more information.
Okay. Yeah, I saw the email. It looks like they're doing they're bringing in parents and kind of doing a quick, or not a quick. It looked like to me that the talk about you know how you guys or somebody, it might have been Cass, was talking about putting together some guidelines on our parent councils. Like maybe this is the group that's going to talk about what those guidelines could look like. That's kind of what it looked like. So I didn't know if coordinated anyway. So you answered my question. Is anybody else involved in that?
No, I guess not. I will take that forward. I do know that the PSU folks are involved in the parent leadership stuff, and maybe ramping up, which may be what you're experiencing, but I can definitely get some more information and share it back with the group. Wow. Thanks for raising those, Tammy. the good head scratchers of our time. Are there any other things coming up folks wanted to ask of their colleagues or peers? Or us, me and Crystal and Aaron too.
So this will be the first time, I have a question. So this will be the first time I do an end of the year report for PSP. So I just wanted to kind of start having discussions around that if possible, or kind of get some feedback on what that's going to look like. The template will come out to us, where we'll be doing that report.
So for the preschool promise enrollment, we have quarterly demographic reports. Is that the one you're talking about? Or?
No, it's the required reporting. It's due on 7/15 end of the year report. It's the required reporting and due date checklist that's online on SharePoint with all the deadlines on there, and so that was listed.
Oh, might that be the preschool promise grantees end of year report?
It doesn't indicate that that's what it would be.
And I only say that because for hub reporting, we're on like a quarterly and monthly piece. But Crystal, is the 7/15 end of year reporting ringing a bell for you at all?
I don't really do reports at the moment, so I'm just kind of not aware if that's the date, but the end of the year report really is, if that's the one, then it is specific to preschool promise grantees.
Keisha, do you want to send me the language and we can just follow up with our colleagues about that too?
Sure, yeah, I'll download this.
Cool. We do have on the 15th, the preschool promise quarterly demographic report for January through March will be due, as well as the monthly usual applicant pool and vacancies and enrollments. But those are the ones I'm aware of on the horizon there. And we can sort that other one out. Keisha, sorry to come draw a blank. Okay. Well, just a few minutes left. I'll do some follow-ups on those questions raised. Thank you both for asking them, and anything else that occurs to you or that you want to talk through or provide feedback on in terms of the coordinated enrollment plan deliverable that will feel a bit more like a show and tell, I think. Oh, thanks. I see your email came in, Keisha, so I can respond right away. Please feel free to reach out. Yes, Keisha, this is the grantees required reports. So your providers have those requirements, but they have an enrollment report that is different from the coordinated enrollment reporting that we do. Yeah. And we can help out if you're hearing requests from grantees for support or something like that. We can definitely help you out with that as well. Feel free to reach out. But yes, and all of you feel free to reach out with any other questions you have about coordinated enrollment planning, outreach, any work with your partners or things that you need. We are here to be thought partners, help direct where we can, and you will be seeing updates about that coordinated enrollment plan deliverable after the cohorts on next Thursday. Thanks you all for your thoughts, feedback, questions, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.